I stared at my war medals through the bottom of an empty whiskey glass, wondering when exactly I'd become the enemy in my own house. Lieutenant Colonel Franklin Hayes, veteran of 2 wars, defeated by luxury car lease payments and a wife who'd rather text her clients than look at me. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The morning sun streamed through our pristine windows, casting shadows across Denise's collection of sales trophies. Everything in our house was glass and chrome, cold, perfect, and about as welcoming as a military tribunal, just like my wife. "Franklin, are you seriously drinking at 9 in the morning?" Denise swept into the kitchen wearing her dealership blazer, phone already glued to her ear. At 45, she still turned heads, all blonde highlights and practiced smiles. "I have 3 showings today and the Henderson account needs—" She paused mid-sentence, reading a text. Her face lit up with the kind of smile she used to give me. "Sorry, honey. Glenn needs me to swing by the office early. Big client from out of town." She kissed the air near my cheek, already heading for the door. "Don't wait up tonight. Team dinner." Another team dinner. That made 4 this month. I watched her BMW pull out of our driveway, noting she'd forgotten her dealership portfolio on the counter, the same portfolio that never left her side for actual client meetings. Funny how memory works when you're lying. My phone buzzed. Text from Valerie, Denise's sister. "BBQ at my place Sunday, 2 o'clock. Bring your appetite and your sense of humor. You'll need both." Valerie knew something. Sisters always do. Sunday arrived with the kind of perfect weather that makes suburban gatherings feel mandatory. Valerie's backyard was a testament to her event planning business. Manicured lawn, designer furniture, and enough space to host a small army. Which, given the Ward family's tendency toward drama, we'd probably need. I fired up the grill while Denise held court by the pool, regaling her cousins with stories about her demanding clientele. She wore a sundress that cost more than my monthly pension, laughing too loud at her own jokes. "Franklin," Uncle Pete clapped me on the shoulder. "Heard you're doing well with that security business. Keeping busy?" "Busy enough." I flipped burgers with military precision. Turns out there's good money in helping people protect what's theirs. "Must be nice having all that free time, though," Denise called over. "Franklin's basically semi-retired, plays with his little spy gadgets and works out at that dingy boxing gym." The family chuckled. Good old Franklin, the harmless old soldier. "Better than playing house with real estate developers," I muttered, loud enough for Pete to hear. Denise's laugh faltered. "What was that, honey?" "I said the burgers are almost ready." At 3:30, a silver Porsche pulled into Valerie's driveway. Glenn Morrison stepped out like he was walking a red carpet. Designer polo, perfect tan, gym muscles straining against his shirt. He was 38, trying to look 28, all flash and no substance. "Sorry I'm late, everyone." He strode across the lawn with the confidence of a man who'd never been punched in the face. Traffic was murder coming from the city. He hugged Valerie politely, shook hands with Pete, then wrapped Denise in an embrace that lasted exactly 3 seconds too long. His hand lingered on her lower back. She giggled like a teenager. I kept grilling. "Glenn, you remember Franklin?" Denise said, her voice artificially bright. "My husband." Glenn extended a manicured hand. "Of course, the security guy. How's business?" "Booming." I shook his hand just hard enough to remind him I wasn't some soft suburban dad. "Lot of people need protection from predators these days." His smile twitched. "I'm sure." For the next hour, I watched Glenn work the crowd. He had that salesman charm, remembered everyone's names, asked about their kids, complimented Valerie's landscaping. But his eyes kept drifting to Denise, and hers to him. When she laughed at his story about closing $1 million deal, she touched his arm. When he complimented her dress, she blushed. When they thought no one was looking, they exchanged glances that could melt steel. Amateur hour. I'd run surveillance operations in Baghdad more subtle than this. Franklin makes the best burgers, Denise announced, finally remembering I existed. It's about the only thing he's good at anymore. The family laughed uncomfortably. Glenn smirked. I'm sure the Colonel has many hidden talents, Valerie said pointedly. Some people just don't feel the need to advertise everything they do. Oh, please, Denise waved her hand dismissively. Franklin's idea of excitement is reorganizing his tool shed. Meanwhile, some of us are actually building careers, meeting interesting people. You mean meeting Glenn? Valerie's voice cut through the chatter like a blade. The backyard went silent. Even the neighbor's dog stopped barking. Denise's face flushed red. Excuse me? I said you clearly have many boyfriends. Valerie stood up, her voice carrying across the lawn. Interesting how your team dinners always seem to coincide with Glenn's business trips to Boston. Glenn's tan went pale. Pete nearly choked on his beer. The cousins stared like they were watching a car crash. Denise opened and closed her mouth like a fish out of water. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything, Valerie said calmly. I'm stating facts. I closed the grill lid and wiped my hands on my apron, watching the scene unfold with the detached interest of a battlefield commander. Battle lines drawn, enemy positions exposed, and suddenly I was holding the high ground. Well, I said, breaking the silence. Anyone want dessert? Monday morning found me in my office at Hayes Security Solutions, staring at 3 months' worth of evidence spread across my desk like a military intelligence briefing. Phone records, credit card statements, GPS logs from Denise's car, all perfectly legal to obtain when you're married and know how to ask the right questions. Tucker Williams, my lead investigator, knocked on the doorframe. Morning, Colonel. You wanted to see me? Tucker was ex-Special Forces, built like a linebacker but moved like a cat. He'd worked for me since I started the company, and his loyalty was absolute. Come in. Bring Lou. Lou Castellano appeared behind Tucker, coffee in hand and perpetually amused expression on his weathered face. Former military police, he had a talent for making people confess things they never intended to say. Gentlemen, I gestured to the files, I need your professional assessment of a surveillance situation. Tucker studied the documents. Someone's been very busy and very sloppy. Hotel charges every Tuesday and Thursday, Lou noted. Always the same place. She's not even trying to hide it. The question is, I said, what would you do if this were your wife? Tucker and Lou exchanged glances. They'd both been through messy divorces. Depends, Tucker said carefully. Are we talking legal consequences or other kinds? Strictly legal. I'm not interested in anything that puts us in orange jumpsuits. Lou grinned. In that case, I'd make sure the cheating spouse understood exactly what they were losing. My thoughts exactly. I'd suspected for months, but confirmation came 3 weeks ago when Denise claimed to be at a client dinner while her car sat in the Marriott parking lot for 4 hours. The same Marriott where Glenn kept a corporate suite. The boxing gym was my sanctuary, a throwback to when problems were solved with honest sweat and direct confrontation. Mickey's place hadn't changed in 20 years. Heavy bags, speed bags, the smell of leather and determination. I was working the heavy bag when Detective Leo Myers walked in. Leo and I went back 15 years, back when I was consulting on security for police facilities and he was working robbery. Heard you might be in here, Leo said, watching me throw combinations. You're hitting that bag like it owes you money. Maybe it does. I threw a right cross that would have dropped a heavyweight. What brings Boston's finest to this den of iniquity? Curiosity. Word is, your wife's been making friends around town. I stopped punching. What kind of word? Leo shrugged. The kind that says Glenn Morrison has a reputation for collecting other men's wives like trophies, and the kind that says you're not the type to take it lying down. You warning me off? I'm warning you to be smart. Morrison's got connections, political friends, but he's also got enemies. Man who makes his living stealing from others tends to accumulate them. I unwrapped my hands slowly. Hypothetically, if someone wanted to make Morrison's life complicated, what would you recommend? Hypothetically? Leo smiled. I'd recommend staying within the law, but the law's got a lot of room for creative interpretation. That evening, I put my plan into motion. Phase 1. Reconnaissance. I followed Glenn's Porsche from his downtown office to his condo in the Back Bay. Expensive neighborhood, valet parking, the kind of place that screamed new money and insecurity. I waited until midnight, then made my move. Glenn's car alarm began blaring at 2 a.m., and 3 a.m., and 4 a.m., every hour on the hour, thanks to a small device Tucker had acquired from his less-than-legal contacts. Nothing traceable, nothing permanent, just a very long, very loud night for anyone trying to sleep in Unit 4B. By morning, Glenn's Porsche sat on 4 flat tires. Not slashed. That would be vandalism. Just deflated, with a small note tucked under the windshield wiper. Dear homewrecker, some things belong to other people. Respectfully, a concerned citizen. I left my old Army coin on his hood, a 1st Infantry Division challenge coin I'd carried through 2 deployments. Let him wonder what kind of soldier he was dealing with. Denise came home Tuesday evening in a fury. "Someone's harassing Glenn," she announced, throwing her purse on the kitchen counter. His car alarm kept the whole building awake, then someone vandalized his tires. "That's terrible," I said, not looking up from my newspaper. "Did he call the police?" They said it was probably kids, but Glenn thinks it might be connected to a business deal gone wrong. Dangerous business real estate. She stared at me suspiciously. "You were here all night, right?" "Where else would I be? I'm just a boring old soldier, remember?" Wednesday morning brought the second surprise. Denise received a certified letter from my attorney, divorce papers, with a complete asset inventory and a request for immediate financial disclosure. I'd been planning this for weeks, moving money into protected accounts, documenting our assets, preparing for legal war. Denise thought she was playing games. I was conducting a military operation. Her scream echoed through the house when she read the papers. "Franklin, get down here right now." I found her in the kitchen, holding the documents like they were on fire. "What is this?" she demanded. "Paperwork. I thought you'd recognize it. You've been so busy with your own lately. You can't just file for divorce without discussing it." "I tried discussing it. You were busy. Team dinners, remember?" Her face cycled through emotions. Shock, anger, calculation. "This is about Glenn, isn't it? You're jealous because I have friends." "I'm not jealous, Denise. I'm disappointed. 22 years of marriage, and you throw it away for a real estate developer with a spray tan. Nothing's happening with Glenn." I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo. Glenn's car in the Marriott parking lot, time-stamped last Tuesday. "Your car's in the next spot over." The color drained from her face. "Here's how this works," I continued calmly. "You can make this easy, or you can make it expensive. But either way, it's happening." She tried tears first, then anger, then seduction. I'd seen better performances in high school theater. "You'll regret this, Franklin. I'll take you for everything you have." "Good luck with that. Read page 12. The prenup you signed still applies." I left her standing in our glass palace, surrounded by her trophies and her shattered illusions. Phase 1 was complete. Time for Phase 2. Denise's counterattack came swift and predictable. She tried to freeze our joint accounts, only to discover I'd already moved everything into a business account she couldn't touch. She called her lawyer, who informed her that my filing was airtight and aggressive. Most importantly, she tried to rally her family against me. "Franklin's lost his mind," she told Valerie over the phone. not knowing I'd installed new security equipment that monitored all communications in the house. He's acting like some kind of paranoid military psycho. Valerie's response surprised us both. Maybe he's finally acting like a man who knows his worth. By Thursday, word had spread through Denise's dealership like wildfire. Lou had visited the service department, posing as a customer, and casually mentioned seeing Denise at the Marriott with some young guy in a Porsche. The automotive business thrives on gossip, and Lou knew exactly how to plant seeds. "Is it true about Mrs. Hayes?" the receptionist asked Denise's manager. "My friend saw her with that developer guy, the married one." Denise's sales numbers had been dropping anyway, hard to focus on customers when you're conducting an affair, but now her colleagues were watching her every move. The pressure was showing. Glenn, meanwhile, was dealing with his own problems. I'd researched his business practices and discovered a pattern. Glenn Morrison specialized in targeting married women with money. 3 previous affairs, all with clients' wives, all ending with mysterious windfalls for his development company. This information found its way to the right people. "Mr. Morrison?" The voice on his office phone belonged to Patricia Chen, wife of his biggest investor. "I think we need to discuss your relationship with the Hayes account." Glenn's face went white. He hadn't realized that Denise's car dealership was partially financed by the Chen family trust. "Mrs. Chen, I'm not sure what you mean." "I mean, my husband doesn't do business with men who can't keep their hands to themselves. Consider our partnership terminated." Within hours, Glenn had lost 2 major contracts, and his office lease was under review. Friday evening, I orchestrated the next phase. Tucker and I were having dinner at Rossetti's, an upscale restaurant downtown, when Denise and Glenn walked in for their weekly business meeting. They didn't see us at first. Glenn was animated, hands gesturing wildly as he complained about his recent setbacks. Denise looked worried, probably realizing her meal ticket was in trouble. "Think they'll order dessert?" Tucker asked quietly. "Depends how much appetite they have left." I stood up and walked past their table, making sure Glenn saw me. His face went pale when he recognized the man who'd been systematically destroying his life. "Evening, Glenn. Denise." I nodded politely. "Enjoying your business dinner?" Denise choked on her wine. "Franklin, what are you doing here?" "Same thing you are, having dinner with a friend." I gestured toward Tucker, who raised his glass in a mock toast. Glenn tried to recover his composure. "Hayes, right? Listen, I think there's been some misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding. You're sleeping with my wife. I'm divorcing her. You're losing clients because word's getting around about your business practices. Seems pretty clear to me." The restaurant was upscale enough that other diners pretended not to listen while hanging on every word. "You can't prove anything," Glenn said, his voice shaking slightly. I smiled and pulled out my phone, showing him a photo of them entering the Marriott together. "Actually, I can prove quite a lot. The question is whether you want me to." Denise grabbed my arm. "Franklin, please. Can we talk privately?" "We're way past talking, sweetheart. But feel free to enjoy your meal. I hear the crow is excellent this time of year." I walked back to my table, leaving them to deal with the stares and whispers of 50 other diners. Saturday brought the confrontation I'd been waiting for. I was jogging through Riverside Park when I spotted Glenn's Porsche in the parking lot. He was running the loop trail, probably trying to work off stress, with Denise beside him in expensive athletic wear. They saw me coming and tried to change direction, but I'd chosen my route carefully. The trail formed a loop with only 2 exits, and Tucker was covering the other one. "Morning, folks," I called out, falling into pace beside them. "Beautiful day for a run." Glenn was breathing hard, not in the shape he pretended to be. "Hayes, this is harassment. This is a public park. I have as much right to be here as you do." "Franklin, stop this," Denise panted. "You're embarrassing yourself." "I'm embarrassing myself?" I laughed. "Lady, you're jogging with your boyfriend in the same park where you used to bring our dog. If anyone should be embarrassed—" Glenn stopped running and turned to face me. That's enough. I don't know what your problem is, old man, but I stopped too, and suddenly Glenn remembered that old man was a combat veteran who still bench-pressed twice his body weight. My problem, I said quietly, is that you're a parasite who makes his living destroying families, and parasites need to be removed. A crowd was gathering. Other joggers, dog walkers, families with strollers. Perfect. Glenn tried to save face. You're pathetic. Denise told me all about you, washed up, bitter, living in the past. I pulled his car keys from my pocket. I'd lifted them while he was stretching, an old pickpocket trick Lou had taught me. Looking for these? Glenn's face went red. Give me my keys. Sure thing. I threw them in a perfect arc over the fence and into the duck pond. Glenn stared at the ripples where his keys had disappeared. You son of a... He lunged at me, which was exactly what I'd hoped for. I sidestepped easily, grabbed his wrist, and used his own momentum to send him stumbling toward the pond. Glenn hit the water with a splash that sent ducks scattering. He came up sputtering, designer running clothes dripping with pond water and duck droppings. The crowd burst into laughter. Someone was recording with their phone. Oops, I said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Guess you should watch where you're going. Denise helped pull Glenn from the pond, both of them soaked and humiliated in front of half the neighborhood. This isn't over, Glenn sputtered. You're right, I agreed. It's just getting started. As they walked away dripping, I heard a woman tell her husband, Isn't that the car salesman who's been cheating on her husband, the veteran? Word would spread. In a community like ours, scandal travels faster than gossip, and this would be the story of the summer. That evening, Valerie called. Franklin? I heard about the park incident. Are you okay? Never better. How's Denise? Furious. She's at my house now, crying about how you've lost your mind and turned everyone against her. And what do you think? Valerie was quiet for a moment. I think you're the best thing that ever happened to our family, and she was too stupid to appreciate it. Valerie, I know you're married to my sister. I know it's complicated. But when this is all over, maybe we could talk. I'd suspected Valerie's feelings for years, but hearing her say it changed everything. Maybe we could, I said. Sunday morning, Denise made her last desperate play. She came home wearing the dress from our anniversary dinner, makeup perfect, smile practiced. Franklin, honey, I've been thinking. Maybe we've both made mistakes. Maybe we should try counseling, work things out. I let her talk while I set up my phone to record. I miss us, she continued. I miss what we had. Glenn doesn't mean anything. He's just a friend, someone to talk to when you were always working. Keep going, I encouraged. I know I haven't been the best wife lately, but I love you, Franklin. I always have. Can't we try again? I stopped recording. That was beautiful, Denise. Really touching. Her face lit up with hope. Unfortunately, I continued, I recorded the whole thing, including the part where you admitted to the affair. The hope faded in her eyes. But here's my favorite part. I played back her voice. Glenn doesn't mean anything. He's just a friend. Then I hit speaker and dialed Glenn's number. Denise? Glenn's voice filled the kitchen. Thank God you called. I've been thinking about what happened yesterday, and I think we should... I played Denise's recording. Glenn doesn't mean anything. He's just a friend. Silence. Glenn? Denise grabbed for the phone. Glenn, that's not what I meant. The line went silent. Congratulations, I said. You just lost your husband and your boyfriend in the same weekend. That might be a record. Denise stared at me with pure hatred. You bastard. You planned all of this. Every detail. Turns out those military planning skills are useful for more than just warfare. She slapped me then, hard enough to leave a mark. I didn't flinch. Feel better? I asked. She ran upstairs, crying. An hour later, she was gone, taking only what she could fit in her car. I poured myself a whiskey and called Valerie. It's over, I said when she answered. Good, because I have an idea about how we finish this properly. Monday evening found me in the parking lot of Morrison Development, watching Glenn's office lights burn late into the night. He was probably trying to salvage what was left of his business empire, making desperate phone calls to investors who no longer returned his messages. Tucker sat in the passenger seat, monitoring police scanner traffic. Building security's pretty light. One guard makes rounds every 2 hours. We're not breaking in. This is purely observational. Of course it is, Colonel. Just like that thing at the pond was accidental. At 9:47 p.m., Glenn emerged from the building looking like he'd aged 5 years in 3 days. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, his confident swagger replaced by the hunched shoulders of a man under siege. He climbed into his Porsche. He'd had to pay $300 to have new keys made, and drove toward the industrial district outside town. "Where's he going?" Tucker asked. "Let's find out." We followed at a distance as Glenn pulled into the parking lot of Hayes Security Solutions, my own office. "Ballsy," Tucker observed. "Or stupid. Probably both." Glenn parked behind the building, out of sight from the street. He sat in his car for 10 minutes, probably working up courage, then got out carrying a baseball bat. "Now it gets interesting," I said. We watched him approach my car, a restored 1967 Mustang I'd spent 2 years rebuilding. Glenn raised the bat, clearly intending to take out his frustrations on something I cared about. That's when Lou appeared from behind a dumpster. "Evening, Mr. Morrison. Nice night for vandalism." Glenn spun around, bat raised. "Who are you?" "Security. This is private property." Tucker and I got out of our car, approaching from Glenn's other side. He was surrounded, holding a weapon on private property with clear criminal intent. "Gentlemen," I said calmly, "I believe Mr. Morrison was about to commit a felony." Glenn's eyes darted between us, calculating odds he didn't like. "I wasn't doing anything, I was just what?" Lou stepped closer. "Just planning to beat my boss's car with that bat?" "You can't prove anything." Tucker held up his phone, showing a clear video of Glenn raising the bat. "Actually, we can." Glenn's face went through several shades of pale. "Look, Hayes, maybe we can work something out, man to man." "I'm listening." "I'll stay away from Denise. End it completely. You don't press charges, we all walk away." I pretended to consider this. "Interesting proposal, but I think you're missing the bigger picture." "What do you mean?" "I mean you've made this personal. Sleeping with my wife was business. Nasty business, but business. Coming here with a bat? That's personal?" Glenn tried to run then, but Tucker and Lou had been expecting it. They tackled him gently. No unnecessary force, just enough to bring him down safely. "Zip ties," I told Lou. "Nice and loose. We're not trying to hurt him." "What are you doing?" Glenn struggled as Lou secured his hands behind his back. "This is kidnapping." "This is citizen's arrest for attempted vandalism. We'll call the police in a few minutes." But first we had some business to conduct. Tucker produced a pair of scissors. "Nice suit, Mr. Morrison. Armani? Don't you dare." Snip, snip, snip. Glenn's designer suit fell away in pieces, leaving him in his underwear and socks. Lou gathered up the scraps and stuffed them in a trash bag. "My clothes? You can't..." "Can't what? Can't cut up the clothes of a man who was attempting to vandalize private property? Pretty sure we can." I called the police while Glenn sat zip-tied and nearly naked on the asphalt, his dignity as shredded as his suit. "Boston Police? I'd like to report an attempted vandalism. Yes, we have the suspect detained. No, he's not dangerous. He's mostly just embarrassed." When the patrol car arrived, Glenn tried to explain that he was the victim, but the evidence was overwhelming. Video of him with the bat, his presence on private property, his inability to explain why he was nearly naked. The officers were professional but clearly amused. "Mr. Morrison, you have the right to remain silent." As they loaded Glenn into the patrol car, I leaned down to his window. "Glenn, That was for the pond. Next time you come at me, make sure you can finish the job. Tuesday brought news that Glenn's arrest had made the local paper. Local developer arrested for vandalism was a small headline, but in our community, it might as well have been front-page news. Denise's dealership was buzzing with gossip. Her manager called her into his office for a conversation about maintaining professional standards. Mrs. Hayes, we've had some concerns raised about your personal associations. My personal life is none of your business. It is when it affects our reputation. The Chen family has expressed concerns about your relationship with Mr. Morrison and their major fleet customers. Denise tried to bluster her way through, but the writing was on the wall. She was put on administrative leave, pending a review of her client relationships. That evening, she tried to return to our house. She still had a key, but I'd changed the locks and installed new security cameras. The footage was priceless. Denise trying different keys, then attempting to climb through a window, finally pounding on the door and screaming at the cameras. The neighbors called the police about the disturbance. When the officers arrived, they found Denise throwing rocks at my windows. "Ma'am, you can't be here. This is a restraining order violation." "Restraining order? I live here." The officer checked his paperwork. "Not according to this. You need to leave immediately." I watched from inside as they escorted her off the property, neighbors peering from behind curtains and taking cell phone videos. By Wednesday, the videos were circulating on social media. Crazy ex-wife attacks house had been shared 300 times on the neighborhood Facebook group. Valerie called that evening with the final piece of our puzzle. "Franklin, I've been thinking about what you said, about finishing this properly. I'm listening. Mother's having another family BBQ this Sunday. Same crowd, same setup. Denise will be there. She's too proud to skip it. And I guarantee Glenn will try to show up and make some kind of scene. Sounds like the perfect opportunity for a grand finale." My thoughts exactly. But Franklin, this time, I want to be more than just your ally. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I want to walk in there on your arm. Let everyone see exactly where the battle lines are drawn." I smiled. "Valerie Ward, are you asking me to be your date?" "I'm asking you to be my partner. In this, and maybe in whatever comes after." "Then I accept. But I should warn you, I don't do anything halfway." "Neither do I. That's why we're going to win." Sunday was going to be very interesting indeed. Sunday morning dawned clear and bright, perfect weather for what Valerie was calling BBQ, the revenge. I dressed carefully, khakis, polo shirt, the kind of outfit that said respectable veteran rather than man who'd spent the week destroying his enemies. Valerie picked me up at noon, driving her silver Mercedes convertible with the top down. She looked stunning in a blue sundress that brought out her eyes, her hair catching the sunlight as we pulled into her driveway. "Ready for this?" she asked, squeezing my hand. "I've been ready for weeks." The same crowd had assembled, Uncle Pete, the cousins, various family friends who lived for drama and gossip. But this time, the atmosphere was different. Word had spread about Denise's arrest, Glenn's legal troubles, and my very public divorce filing. We walked into the backyard hand in hand, and conversation stopped. "Well," Uncle Pete said loudly, "look who decided to upgrade." Valerie smiled brilliantly. "Franklin and I thought it was time to make things official." Cousin Margaret nearly dropped her mimosa. "Official? But Denise is your sister." "Denise made her choices," Valerie replied coolly. "Now Franklin and I are making ours." We worked the crowd like a political campaign, greeting everyone warmly, accepting congratulations, letting people draw their own conclusions about when our relationship had started. At 2:30, Denise arrived. She looked terrible. Hair unwashed, clothes wrinkled, the desperate appearance of someone whose world was collapsing. She'd been staying at a motel since her arrest. Her job was gone, and her legal bills were mounting. She stopped when she saw Valerie and me together. "What is this?" she demanded, loud enough for everyone to hear. "This," I said calmly, "is moving on." "Moving on? With my sister?" Valerie stepped closer to me. "Your ex-husband, you mean. The divorce was finalized yesterday." That was news to Denise. Her face went white. "Finalized? But I never signed." "You abandoned the marital home," I explained patiently. "After 30 days, the court grants divorce by default. It's all very legal." Uncle Pete was grinning like Christmas morning. "So you two are—" "Together," Valerie confirmed, "and very happy." Denise looked around the yard, seeing the same family members who'd once supported her, now watching her with curiosity and judgment. "This is insane," she said. "Franklin, you can't just—" "Can't what? Can't move on with someone who actually wants to be with me? Can't find happiness with a woman who doesn't need to cheat to feel alive?" The family was eating this up. Cousin Margaret had her phone out, probably live tweeting the drama. "But she's my sister." "And you were my wife," I replied, past tense in both cases. That's when Glenn arrived. He pulled up in a rental car. His Porsche had been impounded as evidence, looking like he'd slept in his clothes. The arrest had made the papers, his business was finished, and he was facing criminal charges. But he was desperate enough to make one last play. "Denise!" he called out, stumbling across the lawn. "We need to talk." The crowd turned to watch this new entertainment. Glenn looked awful, unshaven, hollow-eyed, the confident developer replaced by a broken man. "Glenn, not here," Denise hissed. "Yes, here." He grabbed her arm. "I've lost everything because of him. My business, my reputation, my freedom." "You lost everything because you're a parasite," I interrupted. "I just helped speed up the process." Glenn spun to face me, swaying slightly. He'd been drinking. "You think you're so smart, old man? You think you've won?" "I know I have." "Well, here's something you don't know. Denise was going to leave you anyway. We were planning to get married, start a life together." "Were you?" I asked Denise. "Because I have a recording of you calling him meaningless just last week." Denise's face went red. "Glenn, shut up. Just shut up and leave." "Leave? After everything we've been through? After I lost everything for you?" The family was transfixed. This was better than reality TV. "You didn't lose anything for me," Denise snapped. "You lost everything because you're a loser who got caught." Glenn staggered backward, like she'd slapped him. "A loser? I'm a loser?" "Yes, look at you, look at us. We're both homeless, broke, and humiliated because you couldn't keep your mouth shut." Uncle Pete leaned over to his wife. "This is the best BBQ we've ever been to." Glenn's face twisted with rage and alcohol. "You want to see a loser? I'll show you a loser." He lunged toward me, probably planning to throw a punch that would make him feel better about his destroyed life. Tucker and Lou stepped out from behind the pool house. "Problem, Colonel?" Tucker asked mildly. Glenn stopped mid-charge, suddenly remembering that I didn't travel alone anymore. "No problem," I said. "Mr. Morrison was just leaving." "Like hell I am!" Glenn tried to push past Tucker, who moved with the fluid efficiency of a professional soldier. Glenn found himself face down on the perfectly manicured lawn, Tucker's knee in his back and his arm twisted behind him in a submission hold that looked effortless. "Ow! Get off me! Police brutality!" "I'm not police," Tucker said cheerfully. "I'm private security. Big difference." The crowd applauded. Lou produced zip ties. Apparently they'd come prepared for this possibility. "Glenn Morrison," I said formally, "you're trespassing on private property after making verbal threats. Tucker, please escort Mr. Morrison to the street and suggest he find somewhere else to be." As Tucker hauled Glenn toward the driveway, Glenn screamed over his shoulder, "This isn't over, Hayes. I'll get you for this." "Actually," I called back, "it is over, completely and permanently." Tucker deposited Glenn on the sidewalk, cut the zip ties, and suggested he might want to call a cab. The family burst into applause as Tucker and Lou rejoined the party. "Well," Valerie announced, "I think that calls for champagne." As she popped the cork, Denise made one final desperate attempt to salvage something from the wreckage. "This is all fake," she screamed at the assembled crowd. "Franklin's just using Valerie to get back at me. He doesn't love her. He's incapable of love. He's a cold, calculating bastard who—" "Who what?" Valerie interrupted. "Who treats me with respect? Who makes me laugh? Who doesn't need to cheat to feel like a man?" The family turned on Denise then, the way crowds always turn on the losing side. "Honestly, Denise," Cousin Margaret said, "you had a good man, and you threw him away. Don't blame Valerie for being smart enough to appreciate what you couldn't." "He's a war hero," Uncle Pete added, "and you cheated on him with a criminal. What did you expect?" Denise looked around the yard, seeing her family, her former friends, all the people who'd once supported her, now watching her with disgust and disappointment. "Fine," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Fine. You all deserve each other." She ran toward her car, but I called out to stop her. "Denise, one more thing." She turned back, hope flickering in her eyes. I pulled out a manila envelope. "Divorce papers, your copy, and the deed transfer for the house." "What deed transfer?" "The house is now owned by Hayes Ward LLC. That's Valerie and me. You have 30 days to collect your personal belongings." Her face crumpled completely. "You can't do this. It's my house, too." "Read the prenup. All real estate acquired during marriage reverts to the original purchaser in case of adultery. That would be me." Valerie slipped her arm through mine. "We're thinking of redecorating. Something warmer, more welcoming." Denise stared at us for a long moment, then got in her car and drove away, tires squealing on the asphalt. The crowd cheered. Uncle Pete raised his beer. "To Franklin and Valerie, the smartest couple at the BBQ." Everyone toasted. Everyone laughed. Everyone agreed that justice had been served with a side of potato salad and sweet revenge. As the sun set over the perfect suburban scene, I stood with Valerie's hand in mine, surrounded by people who finally understood exactly what kind of man they were dealing with. "So," Valerie whispered in my ear, "what do we do for an encore?" "We live happily ever after," I said, "and we make sure everyone knows it." The war was over. I had won everything that mattered, and I had no intention of ever letting it go. The sirens started wailing in the distance as Glenn's rental car disappeared around the corner, probably heading for the nearest bar to drink away what was left of his dignity. The crowd at Valerie's BBQ was still buzzing with excitement, rehashing every detail of the confrontation like sports fans analyzing a championship game. "Did you see his face when Tucker put him down?" Cousin Margaret was saying. "I got it all on video." "Post it everywhere," Uncle Pete encouraged. "Man's got to face consequences for his actions." I stood at the edge of the gathering, watching my former in-laws celebrate the destruction of Denise and Glenn with the enthusiasm of Romans at the Colosseum. Valerie appeared at my side with 2 glasses of champagne. "Penny for your thoughts, Colonel." "Just appreciating the view," I said. "Amazing how quickly people switch sides when they see who's really winning. They're not switching sides. They're choosing the side they should have been on all along." The sirens were getting closer. Someone had probably called the police about Glenn's disturbance, though he was long gone by now. "Franklin!" Cousin Margaret waved her phone. "You have to see this. I posted the video and it already has 50 likes." The video showed Glenn's entire meltdown in high definition, his drunken accusations, his failed attack, Tucker's effortless takedown, and his humiliating removal from the property. In the background, you could clearly see Denise's face as she realized her life was completely over. "Beautiful work," I told Margaret. "Make sure you tag everyone who was here. I want this to get maximum distribution." Valerie squeezed my arm. "Remind me never to get on your bad side." "Too late for that. You're stuck with me now." The police car pulled up to the curb, and two officers approached the backyard. I recognized one of them, Officer Rodriguez, who'd responded to Denise's break-in attempt at our house. "Afternoon, folks. We got a call about a disturbance?" Uncle Pete stepped forward, grinning. "All taken care of, officer. Just had to remove a trespasser who got a little too excited." "Anyone hurt?" "Only his pride," I said, "and his suit. Tucker here used minimal force to escort him off the property." Tucker nodded respectfully. "Military police training, officer. Subject was intoxicated and making threats. We detained him briefly, then suggested he leave." Officer Rodriguez looked around at the crowd of well-dressed suburbanites, all clearly enjoying themselves. "And where is this subject now?" "Gone," I said. "Drove off in a rental car about 10 minutes ago. Probably headed home to reconsider his life choices. We'll keep an eye out for him. You folks have a good afternoon." As the police car pulled away, the crowd erupted in fresh applause. "To Franklin Hayes!" Uncle Pete shouted. "The man who proved that sometimes the good guys really do win!" Everyone raised their glasses. Everyone cheered. Everyone wanted to shake my hand and tell me how proud they were to know me. But I was watching the street where Denise's car sat parked under a tree 50 yards away. She hadn't left after all. She was sitting behind the wheel, watching her entire world celebrate her destruction. "Valerie," I said quietly, "look who's still here." Valerie followed my gaze and spotted her sister's car. "Should we call the police back?" "No, let her watch. Let her see exactly what she's lost." For 20 minutes, Denise sat in her car while her family and friends toasted my victory. She watched Valerie and me accept congratulations, watched the videos of Glenn's humiliation being shared and reshared, watched her entire support system turn against her. Finally, she got out of the car and walked slowly toward the backyard. The crowd fell silent as she approached. Her face was streaked with tears, her clothes disheveled, her entire appearance screaming defeat. "Franklin," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please, can we talk? Privately?" The crowd held its breath, waiting to see how I'd respond to this final, desperate plea. "No," I said simply. "We're done talking. We're done everything. But I love you. I know I made mistakes, but I love you. You love the security I provided. You love the house, the money, the status. You never loved me." Tears were streaming down her face now. "That's not true. I was confused, scared of getting older, scared of being boring. So you decided to humiliate me instead, in front of our friends, our family, our entire community. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." The crowd was eating this up. Phones were out, recording every moment of Denise's complete breakdown. "Sorry doesn't rebuild 22 years of marriage," I said. "Sorry doesn't undo the lies, the cheating, the public humiliation. Sorry is just a word people use when they get caught." Denise looked around the yard, seeing all the faces that had once smiled at her now watching with cold judgment. "What am I supposed to do?" she sobbed. "I have nothing. No job, no money, no home." "You have exactly what you chose," I replied. "You chose Glenn over me. You chose lies over truth. You chose selfishness over loyalty. Now live with those choices." "But Valerie's my sister. How can you—" "How can I what? How can I be with a woman who actually wants to be with me? How can I choose someone who treats me with respect instead of contempt?" Valerie stepped closer to me, her hand finding mine. "Denise, you had your chance. You had 22 years of chances. You wasted them all. This is my family." "Was," Uncle Pete corrected. "This was your family. Now you're just the cautionary tale we'll tell at future barbecues." The crowd laughed, actually laughed at her pain. Denise stared at me with a mixture of hatred and desperation. "You did this. You planned all of this. You destroyed my life." "No," I said calmly. "You destroyed your life. I just made sure everyone got to watch." She tried to slap me then, just like she had at the house. But this time, I caught her wrist. "Don't," I said quietly. You've embarrassed yourself enough for one day." I released her hand and stepped back. Denise stood there swaying slightly, completely broken, completely defeated. "If you see Denise or Glenn around," I announced to the crowd, "tell them to keep their hands off what doesn't belong to them." The crowd burst into applause and laughter. Denise turned and ran back to her car, sobbing uncontrollably. She sat behind the wheel for another few minutes, probably trying to compose herself enough to drive. Finally, she started the engine and pulled away from the curb. I watched her taillights disappear around the corner, knowing I'd never see her again. She'd leave town, start over somewhere else, probably find another man to support her until she got bored and destroyed that relationship too. But she'd never forget this day. Never forget the moment she realized exactly what she'd lost and exactly how completely she'd lost it. "Well," Valerie said, slipping her arm around my waist, "I think that went well." The crowd was already returning to normal party mode, but the energy was different now, electric. They'd witnessed something extraordinary, a complete and total victory of good over evil, loyalty over betrayal, intelligence over stupidity. "Ladies and gentlemen," I called out, raising my champagne glass one final time, "Operation Homefront is complete. Mission accomplished." The cheers echoed across the neighborhood as Valerie and I drove away in her convertible, leaving behind the wreckage of my old life and heading toward whatever came next. Behind us, sirens wailed in the distance, but they weren't coming for me. They were just the soundtrack to victory,